All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go for CO channel. Now, if you're an agency owner or B2B founder stuck on a feast or famine roller coaster, this episode right now is your off ramp. AJ Casada from RevenueBoost.net breaks down the exact outbound system he's used to help 400 plus businesses scale. AJ, welcome to the Go for CO channel. How are you?
Hey, John, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to dive in today and really give your audience a lot of value and things they can take away and just go away and implement.
Awesome, brother. Well, hey, we like to start off the same way because it really engages our community and the thought, the idea, the where'd you come from scenario, right? Is always something that's big to us. So why don't you
Hmm.
share with the initial steps of, revenue boost and how you started thinking of this idea? Did you come from corporate and decide to go on your own, et cetera? So I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So just going back to my journey, how Revenue Boost started was so for context, we're an outbound agency, which, like you said, we use cold emails and LinkedIn, even cold calling as well to book sales calls for our clients, which are typically B2B companies and service providers. And I started the company because I was actually using outbound to grow a different business. Before I was doing this, I was running a different kind of marketing agency that was more serving local businesses, doing Facebook and Google ads back in like, maybe 2017, 2018. And the way that I was getting all of our clients and growing the business was by doing outbound, sending targeted cold emails to businesses I wanted to work with and getting them on my calendar and showing them what we do and signing them up that way. So I was able to grow this whole business just by doing that, which didn't really take me much time. I didn't have to spend any money on ads or like build a big following or any of that. And as I was doing that, I had other agency owners, just friends of mine and people that were in other like coaching groups and masterminds I was in asking me about how I was able to do that and how I was getting clients. And I was showing them, and then I found that people were just like really, really interested in like this whole cold outreach thing because it wasn't really like very popular. Not a lot of people were like teaching it, at least in that space. So people were asking me, and then I was just helping some people out like for free. And then some guy offered me to like pay me for consulting. And at the time, I didn't know what consulting was. I was like, oh, you'll just pay me to just like sit on Zoom and show you like our strategy. Like that's awesome. So then I started doing more of that and then just realized like, hey, there's actually like a whole business here. So I actually just kind of scrapped the other agency because at this time I also was having some disagreements with the business partner and like we left on good terms, but we just really had, very different visions for the company. So at the time I was like looking for a new thing anyway, and just realized why don't I just go all in on this because I was seeing so much demand for it, right? Like whenever people are asking you a lot about something or people really their eyes light up about one particular thing that you do well, that's a really great business opportunity, right? Because you already know that people they want to learn and they want to do that thing, right? So that's kind of how I got the idea. That's how I got the idea for Revenue Boost. We did this as an agency, but how I got the idea to even do cold outbound in the first place was I did originally come from the corporate world. I worked for a big construction company doing marketing and sales. I did this since I was 18. I got like an internship in college, which ended up being like door-to-door sales. They definitely like dressed it up as like a fancy internship, but it was really just going out there and pounding the pavement. But that was a really great experience. It was really a really good company. But that's where I learned about outbound, right? Where you have a list of people and you go knock on their door or call them, and then out of 100 people, maybe five people want to meet with you and get a proposal, right? So I grew with that company. I ended up building like these sales teams. I was managing like 20 people at one point, and then teaching other people how to do the outbound sales. And I worked there for around 5 years before I started that first agency. So by the time I started that first agency, I already kind of knew the whole idea of like marketing by doing like the prospecting and the cold calling. So I just took that into cold email and just used that to grow the digital business. So that's kind of how it all transpired.
It's interesting because you seem like are you in your 20s or 30s, if you
I'm
don't mind me
30,
asking?
yeah.
Okay, so 30s, right? You got a young face, my friend, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, I
I
know.
just turned 50 and people say I look young, so it's a good thing.
You do, yeah.
I was kind
We
of a
both
baby
do.
looking. In my 20s, they were like, "Hey, are you supposed to be in this meeting?" So long story short, I love the fact that, what I just heard was thick skin is kind of what created your appetite for this business, right? Knocking on doors is not easy. And Go for SEO community, you think about this, right? You get pitched kind of like, oh, this intern, this is going to be so nice. It's, probably a cushy office type job. And all of a sudden you get thrown into the wolves, knocking on doors, no solicitor, and I'm not
Yeah.
here office, da 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 type of thing. It's really interesting that you learned that side of the business and how to do that first, because then to go digital man, it seems like you had some transformative ideas and things that you really brought to the
Mm.
marketplace that were a ton of value. So keep going there. I mean, obviously you learned that way of doing business. It gets you into this mold. And then was that from that the breakout with this other gentleman that you created a business and then left there, or was there still another step or two in between that?
No, that's pretty much it. So I used the whole outbound system to grow the first business I started, which was the local digital marketing agency. And then after just seeing how powerful that system was and seeing other people just really like interested in that, I started Revenue Boost, where we at first we're just consulting other businesses, helping them like learn how to do it and set up the cold email systems to fill their own pipeline. And then about a year and a half ago, we pivoted to actually just doing a full done for you model, where companies just hire us on a monthly fee just to run it for them and book appointments for their sales team.
Interesting. And is there any niche industry that you thought, okay, hey, this is an industry? I mean, you started in construction. Was that the place that you stayed in some of the verticals like roofing or plumbing or electrical? Or am I missing kind of where did you start from an industry standpoint?
Yeah, so when I started the first local marketing agency, we had a mix of clients. I definitely like over time learned the importance of niching down. Like it's much easier if you just serve one client type. But I did have a lot of construction just because that was where I had knowledge, background knowledge and some connections in. But then through learning the cold outreach side, I realized that that's the most valuable to like B2B type businesses. Because also a lot of B2B type businesses do have troubles with paid ads or even social media because a lot of times they serve a very defined client type or a client type that's not on social media or they have a very small target market, right? Not always the case, but a lot of times they do, and that's the perfect case for like targeted cold outbound. So pretty much yeah, for the last 4 years we've just exclusively been serving B2B and a lot of tech and SaaS companies as well as agencies and like high ticket service like business services.
Interesting, interesting. And has there been a certain industry that really has gravitated to then you went deep within there, or have you stayed kind of broad and then brought on maybe two or three similar clients through referrals?
Mm.
What were some of the marketing tactics for the actual growth of your own agency?
Yeah, so for in the very beginning, it was mostly we were serving other agency owners because I had built an agency before and I had a lot of connections in there. And a lot of agencies, a lot of marketing agencies, especially, ironically, don't do their own marketing. They have trouble getting clients for themselves, even though because they're so busy building all these funnels and ads and social media campaigns for their clients, right? But it's like the cobbler with no shoes. So ironically, that was the problem they had, which makes sense also because the way that they would need to get clients in a B2B scenario is different than the type of marketing they might specialize in for their clients, which might be B2C businesses. So I started there, and then over the last year, maybe 2 years, we started working with more SaaS companies. Like our first ever like really big case study when I started doing Done for You was a software company, and that's where we kind of gravitated more towards recently, just because obviously that's booming and growing, and there's especially now with AI, like there's just new startups popping up all the time. But also, there's something about the SaaS industry is a lot of them they can't really afford paid ads, right? Because if they only charge like so much, a lot of them are a couple $100s a month, or maybe they have some bigger clients that are like enterprise deals. But a lot of them, because of their pricing model, they're really not able to get into paid ads like Facebook ads or Google ads. Unless they're, funded by venture capital and they just have this like unlimited budget, right? And they can afford to like not make profit on a customer for 12 months, right? After spending to acquire that customer. So a
Mhm.
lot of software companies, do lean towards outbound because it is, less capital intensive. It allows them just to kind of get out and like promote their solution faster, and also because they're limited with a much tighter cost per acquisition goal. So that's kind of where we focus on in terms of client type. We've had a mix of clients as well, like IT services or financial services, but these days we're working with a lot more SaaS. How we've grown the business is we definitely do our own outreach as well. And then I just do a lot of content and brand building. Like I always just try to, grab speaking opportunities when I can, speak at masterminds or events or on podcasts like this. It's really important in my space because, a lot of prospects I talk to, they've been burned by a lead generation company before. So the trust is a real big thing. So I really try to do a lot of content and, thought leadership to bring in leads who already come in, trusting that we're good at what we do.
Interesting. From a marketing perspective, I love that you said that, right? A lot of times, the doctor who's doing the work maybe gets some referrals and they learn a little bit of that side of the business, the dentist, the veterinary, all that type of stuff, or even any business. But it's so funny how you have to have an outside source, an outside pair of eyes, a lot of times, unless you have a marketing department that can solely
Mm.
work on it. how to bring that lead
Exactly.
and all that stuff, right? So it's really interesting, and it's always going to be a needed space. Even with AI, I think it's still, like who do you have that expertise with, that competency to be able to build that out, right? So,
Mhm.
so from starting that agency with someone else, right, and then kind of going on your own and having had that connection, what was the style of your leadership? If you say, like, hey, I start to grow, is it more, do you work with people that are 1099, like independent contractors, or did you start bringing in employees, W-2s from that perspective of growth?
Yeah, so I started pretty lean. I mean, I think in this business as well as the last one, my first hire was typically it was an assistant. Like I think every entrepreneur should have virtual assistant or executive assistant. Pretty much, yeah, very much like 1099 contractors from the beginning, and just really try to like staff according to our client work, and not try to like grow too quick the team. I've made that mistake before in the previous agency or the previous business of hiring too many people and investing too much in growth too quickly. Because let's say we had a good month or a good couple months, and I thought I was going to stay like that, right? But neglecting the fact that business always has this cycle of ups and downs. So I really just try to stay lean and get as much done we can with it with the small team, and just really like staff the growth as we went on. But yeah, but beyond the first hire for me, which was an assistant, the second one was someone to lead the delivery because that's typically, in my opinion, the next thing to like get yourself out of. So right now, our head of fulfillment, who manages like all of our client campaigns, she started as like just a delivery role, just helping me with one specific part of client fulfillment, as in like running the campaigns. And then I
Mhm.
mentored her on like all the other aspects of the business, and now she pretty much runs the like the whole show.
Nice, nice. So from a even from a smaller agency perspective, you've been able to already see kind of the vision of how to work in and out of the business, right? And on the business, right, per se. So I guess
Mm.
from that perspective, as you bring in the clientele, are you now more on biz dev and then letting her fulfill, or are you still leading the way and kind of touching each part of the business?
Yeah, I mean, the last 6 months I've been able to get myself more out of the delivery and just focus most of my time on business development, which is, exactly where I want to be, and all CEOs have to be, should have that as their main priority, right? I think I've seen a lot of other entrepreneurs, especially in my case, like agency owners, get really stuck in the delivery and then just never get out, right? They're always just on this hamster wheel of client work, and they don't learn how to delegate, or they don't learn how to like, get out of that and kind of maintain the standards. So I've been out of it more. I'm not 100% out of it. I'm still involved in like the strategy, and I'll still kind of meet with the team and help with solving some of the big problems. I've yet to fully relieve myself of that department. But I kind of went the route of like training someone up and mentoring them versus like hiring someone who's been doing it 10 years who's going to cost a lot more. So I guess that kind of came with my decision that's going to take a little bit of time. But it's been working out well.
Now, it sounds rosy because it's like one and done, right? Like you got one, you cultivated her, right? You built her
Yeah.
up, you positioned her with more competencies than she had coming in. Was there any challenges, right? Has there been some things that maybe she's been trying to get recruited out, right? And now you taught her all these things. Are there some pitfalls that you saw that maybe you've learned from?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think business is always a rocky road, right? I think it's never like smooth sailing. Whenever it is smooth, I'm always like worried like when the next big problem is going to happen, right? I'm like, it can't last this good forever, right? But yeah, in terms of that, I mean, so we haven't had the issue of her trying to be like recruited out or so. There's definitely been, yeah, luckily, I mean, so when I started revenue was 4 years ago, but we were the coaching model. I mentioned that we switched to the done for you model like a year and a half ago. So it was kind of like rebuild the business because I let go of the entire previous team we had, like maybe 8 staff members, because we switched from coaching to more of an agency done for you model. Um, and fortunately, since we started that model a year and a half ago, we've had pretty good team member retention. It's been mostly smooth on that front. Although I did have like a key team member quit literally a week before my wife was having a baby.
Hmm.
My assistant wanted to or did quit. Not only quit, but also she was in the Philippines. And I guess I don't know if it's a thing over there or if it's just the fact that she was a little bit younger and didn't really have a lot of corporate experience before and didn't know. But she thought it was okay just to like quit with like a day's notice. And I was like, no, you've been like running a lot of things. Like you have to give us like 2 weeks notice. Like that's like the like it just didn't click for her that like that was a thing. It was just more like, oh, I'm gonna quit. By the way, I'll finish today's work and then I'm done a day pretty like literally again 3 days before we were having like we were due in the hospital. So that was really stressful. But then luckily I had just hired someone else like really quick to kind of take over. And then I talked to her and had a phone call and I was like, hey, the right thing to do is to like at least give us 2 weeks. And then she understood it and it was like totally game for it. It just like didn't click at first. But that was stressful. I mean, that was a stressful time because we had a lot happening at once. We had pretty much like doubled our team and hired like 3 to 4 people through that month where like where like my baby was due, as well as having that key person quit. So that was a pretty rocky time with a lot of change. But luckily, everyone we hired since then it has stuck around, and that key team member I mentioned who's been managing fulfillment has been pretty loyal, pretty committed to the business. And I think the fact that I kind of like mentored her from like nothing essentially, like where she didn't really know much of the business, I think that approach buys a lot of loyalty as well.
Yeah, there's a ton of goodwill, right? You've poured into her, and well, I think it's human nature, right? Someone that's really supported you, unless you're conniving from the beginning, right, and have some
Yeah.
agenda, typically you stay loyal and you are willing to kind of battle through even some tougher times in those situations. So, I guess one perspective I'd love to kind of go a little bit deeper on is, and we're always learning here at the Go for CEO channel, is where is that focal point of running a lean and mean agency? A lot of businesses out there are really going towards this model and individually being able to not have to necessarily grow a large staff, right? Because of technology and the way things are happening and the specific industry that you're in. But how do you play the bench strength compared to the current strength, right? Do you have some sort of process or ideas or ideology behind that? Of knowing that, like, hey, now that you learn that this lady kind of quit on the spot and she didn't know the culture or the philosophy of that, do you now change the way that you do business and maybe have two or three on the sideline that could plug in if you ever need to because you give them like random work of projects or something like that?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely that was a good learning experience. And something like that's happened to me a couple times before. It's shown up in different forms where like some key person leaves or even gets sick. Like my one of my key team members, her father passed away unexpectedly this year, and she was out. I told her to take as much time as she needed, and she was out for 3 weeks basically, right? So the next thing I really have to solve is just getting at least two people knowledgeable of each role. Right now in our company, two people know how to do every role, but one of those two people is often me, right? So my next goal is to get two people who are not me to have the competence of doing one role. It's tricky because a lot of times you don't really need like you only need one person in a role. There's only enough work for one person, right? But that's why we've taken a lot of time this year to really document all of our processes, right? Which is so much easier now with AI, right? Like you can take a video like this and feed the transcript to ChatGPT or Claude and have it create like a guide for you from it, right? So, and that's become way easier, way less time consuming now. But we've definitely been taking a lot of steps to just put everything into SOPs for each area of the business, so that if someone does leave and no one else knows how to cover, at least they have like a roadmap on how to cover for that person.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that. I mean, I think obviously technology and some of the new AI tools have sped up that process. I think, but it's interesting, right? Because there's millions and millions of businesses out there, especially in the United States, but not many of them hit seven figures, right?
Mm.
I shared that on another podcast that I think the research is around 9% of companies that, form an LLC or corp or
Hmm.
whatever, actually hit seven figures, a million plus in revenue. So
Like
it's
per year or total?
per year. Yeah, per
Okay,
year.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, millions of businesses get created, but a lot of times it's taking these smaller agency components and how do you build to scale, right? And how do you
Mhm.
build to either bolt on to acquire? For my day to day, I'm a commercial banker, so I help a lot of companies acquire other businesses and do the financing side of it. Last night
Yeah.
I was with a bunch of PE guys yesterday, and it was so funny kind of hearing their mindset of, oh, they're buying 50 and 100 and 200 million dollar companies, top line revenue, and whatever their EBITDA strikes are and stuff. So it's interesting to go from like the smaller lean and mean to understand
Mm.
what it takes to then scale, right? So I appreciate you kind of sharing your philosophy because you've had to learn that, right? And you've had to grow
Yeah.
in the way that you built that. So, all right. So next thing is, we've talked about marketing. We've talked a little bit about leadership and a kind of bench strength. What is the funding side to this? Like, how do you handle cash flow, right? Were you completely funded when you got out of the other business? Did you sell like a portion of it to capitalize yourself for this new one, or did you bootstrap it from the beginning again for this new venture with revenue boost?
Yeah, I pretty much started this with like no money other than maybe less than $1,000 in like legal fees and just getting like a website set up, which I think even for the first year we even have like a website, which is pretty crazy. But I'm a big believer in like starting scrappy and the value of bootstrapping, especially just in the service business. Like really, you can create, you can create an offer just out of ideas in your head and then just find a client to sell it. So like the way I like to do it is always have the clients actually fund the business. Like all you really need to start a service-based business is come up with an offer, at least some minimal way to sell that, right? Whether it's like a landing page or even a Google Doc, right? Just something to have like that offer on paper. And then just find your first couple clients, which is pretty easy to do, right? Like you can usually find your first couple clients just from your warm network or people who are already following you on social media. But then that money was what allowed, like, then I started to, save up money from those clients and then eventually put that aside for the first employee, the next one, and the next one, right? And then just be able to kind of keep growing from there. But yeah, I always was very intentional around like just, first of all, not wasting my time on things that aren't generating revenue, because I think a lot of founders get stuck in that, all of this like busy work that's not actually generating revenue. But then also not setting that aside and planning for growth and, because otherwise then you have to take a loan or go out of your own pocket or whatever it is, right? So I'm always just putting a percentage aside for the next hire we want to make or whatever the next investment we want to make in the business is.
Interesting. Now, would you have recommended right now any books that you read, or did you have some mentors that were kind of teaching you this financial, framework that you started to put together?
I definitely have some mentors. I'm in a business mastermind now where we meet up 3 times a year. I've always been in some sort of like coaching program or mastermind. I'm always trying to, pay for the shortcuts where I can because I think that's the best thing you could do, right? Because otherwise you're just learning everything from trial and error and mistakes. But business like in terms of books, I did read Profit First, which was pretty cool. That gave me a good understanding. But a lot of that just came from trial and error because in my previous business I made the mistake. I definitely wasn't good with like managing finances. Luckily, my wife is, which is what she handles in the business now. But I definitely made the mistake multiple times of like over investing. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, there was periods of time where we had 2 really good months, and I thought that that was going to be like our average, or we were just going to keep going up. And then invest in the business, hire more people, and then the revenue went down because that was just like a peak moment. And then things got really tight, right? Um, so, now I'm a much more, just because of learning from those mistakes. I mean, there was a time a couple years ago where I had to like let go a lot of people because we had a couple of really bad months and I wasn't prepared for that, right? So now I'm very conscious of always having at least like 6 to 12 months of runway aside in the business and not making like huge investments unless, it's like I don't want any investment we're going to make to cut into that actual business runway, right? And if we are making an investment, I have to be confident that, we're going to make that back within like a year's time. And it's something that's actually useful to my business, useful to my current goals, and going to help us make more profit, not just some shiny object or some idea that like sounds cool, right? So I've become a lot more disciplined with it, but I definitely wasn't always that way. So a lot of just learning from mistakes, but the books and mentors help too.
I love the transparency, AJ. I mean, I think obviously one of the realities is, business is war, right? It's complex.
Mm.
You got to stay paranoid and you got to understand kind of where it's coming from and what you're doing. But it also can be simple, right? When you start to put in the processes and you kind of see how you developed the first client, the second one, do you use referrals? Do you use outreach? Do you use marketing? Is there COIs or are there other avenues of how business come in? Then actually can be somewhat simple at times. But yeah, that tricky part of finance, which is kind of my space, right? And teaching people
Mm.
cash flow management. What are the tools? How do you buy vendors or how do you negotiate with vendors and those types of things is ideal. So tell us a little bit about
Mm.
that part of the business, right? From an agency perspective, and you have these kind of different industries and you have these ideas, do you use certain KPIs to kind of guide you on, all right, hey, we did A/B testing for this, B worked out, let's hammer it on that one. And do you pursue a way of doing business with your clients that says, hey, once this works, we go all in, or do you keep on testing it in certain ways?
Yeah, so coming down to like when we're running the cold outreach campaigns for our clients.
Yep.
Yeah, we definitely do a lot of testing. So, in the first 3 months with a new client, we might te have tested like a few dozen campaigns, different email sequences, different messaging, different offers, different lists, like different target audiences, right? And we're just very data driven on looking at what's actually bringing in the most leads and also the leads that are actually, booking calls and turning out to be qualified. So, A lot of what my team and I do is actually just read the data and take a very like structured approach to finding out what's going to work in their target market. Because at the end of the day, you don't really know. Like if you're a great marketer, you don't, that doesn't mean that you can tell the future and that you can just predict what's going to work in every market, right? You get more of a sense for like what's going to land, but you ultimately don't know until you actually just test and put something in front of the audience, right? So we do a lot of testing, and then once we see that like okay, this particular campaign, this list and this email template is really getting the most leads and the most qualified leads, then we'll just, go on that. But usually it could take like 3 to 6 months, sometimes more to even find that. So it's definitely not like outbound isn't like a one and done scenario where you just run it for a month and have a lot of success. It's definitely a process of just like testing and trying to find what's going to work the best in your space.
And I love the truth behind that, right? You really seem so genuinely speaking of the industry because there's a lot of hype. Um,
Yeah.
sometimes, promise the world. And I think that's where business owners, right, founders of companies that need your service get a little bit misled in the delivery and the expectation of it, right?
Mm.
And then they burn through, I don't know, 30,000, 100,000, $200,000, and they're like, what did I actually get, right? Uh,
Right.
so it's an interesting concept. It's kind of like when you find a great mechanic that doesn't necessarily shady, go to get you different areas of your car because you don't know anything about cars, and you find something
Yeah.
good, you stick with them, right? So that's how
Mm.
you built a great reputation in your business with Revenue Boost. All right, so I do want to backtrack just a little bit on Revenue Boost. Where did that name come from? Just to kind of give a little insight. Was there any magical moment, or just for a minute of kind of reflection there?
Yeah, I can't even remember honestly. I don't think there was a moment. I think I just wanted to like describe the business by like exactly what we do. Like I think that's really important with messaging is like clarity, right? To me, that's more important than like cleverness. I think clever is good if you're like some tech company or something, right? Like that's why all these tech companies have all these really weird names that don't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
But we're an agency, so I just wanted to clearly describe like what we actually do. So we help boost people's revenue.
Awesome. Awesome. I love the simplicity on that. I was curious about it. I wanted to kind of know because, yeah, I mean, go for CEO, right? It came to me one day. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to build a brand that goes for CEO in your life, family, your fitness, your finance, your fun. I wrote the book, the 4A formula for that to be able to kind of transition the Go for CEO brand into a book. And that's what happened is interviewing guys like you and gals like you that own businesses and 300, 400 stories kind of came together in the book. So it's really awesome. So you said
Mm.
you have a family. I do like to get a little bit family oriented, especially with
Yeah,
lean and mean agencies and businesses that are growing. Is it you have one kid?
just one. Yeah, he's nine months.
Congrats, congrats. I've got three daughters, so it's an
Oh,
interesting
cool.
girl.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Boy,
it's been a lot of fun. A boy.
okay, boy. So all right, I'm jealous in that sense. So but awesome. So look, from this perspective, from a CEO mindset and obviously having to run a business that, you're on the biz dev side, what's that play between time right now that you actually have a family, it's a little
Mm,
bit more loose and goosey. You can be out, networking and schmoozing and all that stuff. But now you have a kid. So give us a little bit of that perspective. I don't typically talk about this area, but it is interesting from a guy that's built a good brand, doing
mm.
some things to get out there in the biz dev world. You have to trade that time to put in to invest into opportunity. So what does that look like for you now that you have a 9 month old?
Yeah, it's definitely shifted what I prioritize for sure. I would say I work a little bit less now, but not that much less because already before I had the kid, I was like already much, of the mindset of like work-life balance and efficiency because that was always important to me. And then I always knew that this was going to come up, that we were eventually going to start having kids. So I don't know, maybe it's like 4 or 5 years ago, I've pretty much stuck to like a Monday to Friday schedule, like just treating it like a regular job, working 40, maybe 50 hours a week. There's definitely seasons where there's like some really long days, but for the most part, I just work 40, 50 hours a week. And part of that is because of like having a team. So I think when I first started the business, I was definitely working more, but then, once I got some leverage on my time, I got a team in place. That was really helpful. I'm really big on like systems and automating what I can, as well as, nowadays just using as much AI as I can. So, yeah, I'm definitely of the mindset of like work smarter, not harder. And I think as entrepreneurs, we're creative, right? We get paid for really like our ideas and our thoughts, right? Everything starts with like our ideas, our thoughts, our decisions that we make, right? We all have the same time in a day, so it's not really about the time you put in. It's more about, what we're actually doing in that time and the quality of the decisions we're making. So for me, I find that like I used to work 7 days a week, but I find that I can't really think very clearly or come up with the best ideas if I'm just working all the time. So I feel like I work better if I have more time to actually, relax and rest and recharge as well. Which I think that's the case for a lot of people. Maybe some people are built differently, and some people just love to kind of work 14 hours a day with no end in sight. But I like to have a balance, and I think that's where I function the best.
Okay, and that's fair. I mean, I think different generations have cultivated different ideas, right? I think the
Mm.
boomers still really believe in the, hey, man, you work 18 hours a day. This is your business. You sell out. Don't worry about missing the kids' plays or whatever
Yeah.
moments, right? You provide it, right? And then there's Gen X like me that I think we're kind of a mix. We're
Mm.
tough-skinned, right? We know that it still takes that type of brute, but I feel like, the younger generations are finding ways to kind of assimilate, right? You still have to work hard. I mean, no matter
Of
what, like
course.
there is no
Yeah.
skipping hard work, but being smarter in the way that you put in the context of understanding how to leverage time, right? Leverage that the gal that you mentored, and now she's kind of
Mm.
running a large part of your business, and you can oversee it. That's where you go on instead of in the business, right? And start to oversee.
Totally.
So I love it. I love it. So all right. So one of the things that we always like to talk about is operations, right? So as you started forming these SOPs and you've been able to also integrate some of the great technology that's flourished over the last 6 to 12, 18 months, what are some things that you've seen that now are really kind of helping you either attract, maintain, or build that client base?
In terms of like the technology and the tools and whatnot.
Yeah, what are you using? Yep.
Yeah, well, we use so for the outreach we do for the cold email, we use a tool called clay.com, which is specifically just for like what we do for running outreach campaigns and building really high quality lead lists and just automating a lot more of that process. For my business and my operations in general, use ChatGPT, use Claude. We use Claude for everything copywriting because I find that it's better at like sounding like a human, whereas ChatGPT always writes content that sounds very robotic. And use ChatGPT for pretty much everything else. But one of the best things, or probably the best thing I've done, which I recommend to everyone, is creating my own custom bots. So
Mm.
in ChatGPT, it's called custom GPTs. In Claude, it's called Claude projects. But this is where you basically create a bot that's designed for your business for a specific task, right? So I have one for email writing, and I basically so if you just go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, write me a cold email," it's going to write you something pretty generic, pretty basic, because it's pretty much scraping the web for like the most popular cold email templates. The problem with that is it's not going to be very good. It's not going to be very catered to your business. And also everybody else has access to that. So you're kind of sending the same fluff everyone else is sending, right? Whereas if you create your own email bot, what you can do is you can upload, 100 emails that are really good, like previous top performing emails, right? You can feed it to that bot. You can upload it some training material. You could take like in my case, I have an online course as well that teaches people how to do cold outreach. So I could take those videos, I could transcribe them. Basically, you upload all of this knowledge, all of this training data to this bot, which is designed for one specific purpose. And then you go to that bot to say, write me an email. And it's going to be trained on like exactly how you want it to do that task. And it's going to have reference material and source material that you provided rather than just scrolling the internet to find any random piece of information, right? And you can do anything. We use it for social media as well. Um, we use it for like email deliverability, like for answering like tech questions. So many different things, right? I even have one for me lead magnets, right? So I've taken videos I've recorded around how to create good lead magnets and just fed it to the bot. And now whenever I need a new idea or whenever a client of mine needs an idea, I just give it the bot and it comes up with really tailored ideas. So that's the best thing. That's where you can go from just getting like generic results from AI to getting really high quality results with AI because you're essentially training it on your business. And AI works better when it's really programmed to do a very specific task versus just like what most people use, which is just the generic chat window, which is still fine. I still use that too. But if there's anything that I do repeatedly in my business, I'm always making a bot for it so that it just gets really good.
Nate. So do you take it to a level where now it actually can interact with a lead that's for you for revenue boost, or you use it more to be able to help your clients? So not so much what's coming into you and your company, but more for the outreach of your clientele.
Yeah, we use it for our clients as well. So we have a cold email bot that writes email sequences for our clients' campaigns that's trained really well. We also have an inbox manager bot that basically when a lead comes in for a client's campaign and they're asking a question, we have this bot that like drafts a really good response. So in that case, we could, if we wanted, we could upload the client's information about their business and be able to like have that bot train on the client's business so they know what to say. So yeah, we're using it internally as well as for the marketing we do for our clients.
And do you have any piece of that of like a control, right? So maybe, and I'm not the most techie guy, but call it a hallucination and it goes crazy and says some weird things. Do you have a control kind of that where you can preview it before it sends, or do you just let it automate itself?
Yeah, so when you're creating your own bots, it's still going to be a chat window where you go to ChatGPT and you type something in and it gives you text back. So we still would need a human to copy and paste that output and then send it to a lead or upload it to an email sequencer tool, right? And for everything we do, and again, there are bots as well that can just like skip that and like automate it so it goes out right away. But for everything we do with AI, there's always a human checking it. I definitely think it's risky to outsource 100% of a task to AI because it's always going to mess up sometimes, right? And you don't want to risk that. So everything we do with AI is always has a set of eyes on it, but it just saves most of the time is what it does.
I heard an interesting story, maybe not as related, but a chat bot for Air Canada apparently was giving away some sort of crazy discount on its chat bot, and all of a sudden the consumers did a grand or a class action lawsuit based on something that happened on that. So people are
Yeah,
realizing like you can't just go, okay, create an agent, a bot, or whatever, and just let it do whatever it wants to do, right? You got to have some controls. It's kind of
for
privy
sure.
to for me in commercial banking, I always talk about to clients like, hey, when you do an ACH or a wire, you want to have a set of eyes. You want to be able to not just have your director of finance send out an ACH or a wire. You want to have like dual control, right?
Mm,
And that's kind of the precipice of that is having, okay, one more set of eyes so that if God forbid does something does happen, at least you have kind of people to be able to not necessarily reprimand, but show hold accountable, right? Is kind of a good way to look at it. Um,
yeah.
so look, what are some like two top things that you've learned from being an entrepreneur and CEO of a company? Would you say kind of like high level and pick any area, operations, sales, scaling, leadership, funding. What are some kind of two things that come to mind if you would say to lead with the Go for CEO community?
I think one thing is really the importance of like, optimizing your productivity, meaning like your health, your mindset, your schedule, like all of the stuff that surrounds the work you do. Because really we're like athletes, right? And like, but instead of using our body, we use our mind. So, um, yeah, a big impact for me is like just all the work I've done. Like I worked with even like a coach a while back on this for a couple of years. Just getting my schedule, my routine really optimized, my morning routine, like committing to consistent, workouts, working out every day before work. It doesn't, you don't have to have this crazy like 6 hour morning routine that you see some people talk about, right? But just at least having some, a set of simple habits and routines that work for you, that keep your energy high, keep your mindset strong. And the mindset's really important too, because, there's always going to be disappointments as an entrepreneur. There's always going to be setbacks and problems. But the stronger that your mindset is, the better you're feeling, the better your health is, the more work you've done on that, the quicker you can bounce back when something bad happens and not let it just like throw your whole day away, right? So yeah, definitely just doing the work to keep a strong, positive mindset, and just keeping healthy, keeping my energy up, as well as just like learning a couple things around like my daily productivity just to make me more effective in the day, rather than just being like distracted and just getting like 2 hours of work done in an 8 hour workday. That's been really key. So definitely work on the personal side is one. Um, and then another one, in terms of a specific thing that's helped me as an entrepreneur, um, I would say, it's cliche, but learn what you're good at and just try to only do that. I'm very conscious of where my time goes, and if I notice that I'm putting, too much time or really any time in something that I don't enjoy and or I'm not like just uniquely good at, I'm always thinking like, how can I get this off my plate? Can I just stop doing it and the business still works? Can I just delete it, right? Or can I automate it? Or can I give this to someone else on my team? Or do I have to hire someone new for this? So just be very aware of like the things that you're doing, and the more that you could just do the stuff that you're the best at, that produces the most value, the better.
Nate, I love that. It's very good wisdom there, right? Especially that last one. I think one of the things that we all struggle with from an entrepreneurial standpoint is wearing every hat, right? And
Yeah.
feeling you need to be the best at everything, or even limiting yourself, right? Not bringing in talent because you say to yourself, well, if I don't do it, it's not going to be done. Or if I don't do it, then it's not going to be done the right way, right? Those types of things. And I think that's one of the things I've noticed. I'm in commercial bank, right? Like 5 to 100 million is my revenue scale that I work with. And it's interesting, you can't break either 2 to 7 figures or from 1 million to 5 or 10 or 20 if you have that mindset where you have to do
Mm.
everything, right? You will
Yeah,
always stay small. You will always stay limited unless somehow, every AI agent in the world is pretty awesome and nobody has real employees, right? Um,
right. Maybe one day.
that could be a reality one day. But in reality, in the current present time, that's one of the biggest limiters of what from what I see, because I could run into so many small to medium-sized businesses that are under 1 million, and I'm always curious if they're in business 5, 10, 20, 30 years. I'm like, man, they haven't reached 7 figures. What is that limiting belief either in their
Mm.
mind or what they're doing structurally with their business to get to 5, 10, 20 million, right? 100 million.
Mm. Totally.
It, so, as we wrap up the interview, we always like to talk about CEO and the O you kind of hit on. So we may go a little bit light on that one, but C is for client experience. So AJ, when you think about revenue boost and that client journey that they're about to embark, and they see this podcast and they're like, man, I really want to work with AJ and his team. What does that client experience from a value proposition look like?
So like when we take on a new client, what are we doing with them?
What's the journey and the value prop that you're suggesting why they should do business with Revenue Boost?
Yeah, the value prop is simple. It's more sales pipeline and more booked calls in your calendar, right? Like you always are, if you want to grow, you're always going to need more leads or like in the B2B case, more booked calls for most of the businesses that we work with that are like tech or service based. So yeah, we really just provide an outsourced option to, again, give them that boost of pipeline and boost of revenue, hence the name. So that's why they work with us. How they work with us is the first thing we do is, we onboard a client, we have them fill out a form that tells us everything about their business so that we can pretty much go out and sell for them and understand like exactly who we need to target, who are their best clients that we want to find, what do we need to say to them, right? What are we offering? Understanding the product so that we can actually be a good representative of their company. And then we'll also have a call as well, or usually a series of calls to kind of like dig into that further. So first thing is we're just really downloading as much as possible about their business so that our team is very knowledgeable. Because that's one of the problems with outsourcing. Sometimes you can hire an agency and they're promoting on behalf of your brand, but if they don't really know your brand very well, or if they don't know the intricacies, then they're not going to represent you really well, right? Which could really hurt your brand, or at least it could just won't get the best results. So we go really deep dive into that research and discovery of the client's business. Then we start building all of their campaigns and phases. So we'll set up the tech, we'll set up the list of who we're actually going to reach out to and prospect. We'll write all the messaging, we'll give that to the client for approval, and then we'll pretty much launch. From the point of launch, then it's just a continuous process of, reading the data, seeing what's worked, coming up with new campaign ideas, trying to, improve the results as much as we can, and then just checking in with the client to see how they're doing with closing the deals and actually getting a return on this. So that's kind of the high level overview of the process we take, but that's how the client experience begins and ends.
You kind of popped an idea up for me. So just to go a little bit deeper on this client journey, I don't think we talked about revenue from a revenue boost perspective. Are you more of an MRR? So do you get a monthly retainer? Do you work on a contract to month where, they could take their leave?
Yeah.
So what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, we're monthly retainer. We do like a 3 month minimum, and then a month to month, so no long-term contracts. We do get some consulting clients, usually one or two a month. That's like a one-off engagement where they just want to learn our stuff or get a little bit of help. But most of the time, what we're doing is we're just taking over this part of their business and just doing it on a monthly basis.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting the fractional side, and I won't go too much into it, but I've had a lot of fractional CMO, CFO, COOs, all these stuff, and it's interesting the way that business is forming over the last 4 or 5 years. I feel like there's a change and a shift to understanding, hey, we could use revenue boost for like a 6 month period, right? Learn it, and then maybe come in for projects that revenue boost can bring us in. But
Mm.
that may not be your necessary strategy. I'm just seeing that the industry of business is kind of looking at that from a fractional perspective, right? So,
Of
so
like not hiring agencies, but like hiring people to come in for a period of time to help set something
well,
up.
It's a combo. It's agencies and also these former, C-suite people that kind of have a great vast of knowledge, but they don't want to commit to having someone on their payroll from a W-2 perspective. They
Right.
want to use them for their knowledge base. And I mean that in a kind way, not like just use and abuse and get out,
Yeah.
but it's an interesting dynamic because just the flow of business, the technology that's happening, it's been rapidly kind of going that route, at least from the a few hundred interviews that I've seen, and it's really starting to kind of impact how people think about business and maybe some of the mind shifts, the paradigms in business itself, right? Um,
Mhm.
so any feedback on that or?
Yeah, I think I mean, that's definitely good for me because that's what we do, right? But I think part of like globalization has helped, right? Because now that we can just work with people anywhere in the world, I'm sure that's had a cause in that, right? Realizing that, oh, we can just find an expert in any country and there's like, we're not just limited to hiring full-time employees just where we live, right? I'm sure that's had a part, and I'm sure also with some of the shakiness or uncertainty in the economy, that's a part of it too, as well, right? With wanting to like lower the commitment and lower the risk.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's a big part. So one of the second question is E for engagement. So AJ, I mean, when you think about how people engage with you, this vital key employee that you have, and what you've done to mentor her, some of the other employees that you have, the vendors that you work with, maybe other collaborative agencies that you work with, how would people describe engaging with you? Are you a event guy? Do you like to do retreats with your people? Do you like to do holiday parties? Are you a break the bread, go do lunch and dinners? What kind of engagement do you bring to the table as far as your style?
Yeah, well, lunch and dinners would be tough because our employees are all in different continents. So that would be an expensive lunch for sure. But I am going to start doing retreats because yeah, we're fully remote. Like no one that works for me like lives in the same country I do. So I did start thinking like, okay, we got to get everyone together, right? Like we do like meetups. Like we'll do like a monthly Zoom call with just everyone on the company. But I definitely next year I'm going to just get everyone in the same place and just do like a week long retreat or something. So that's something I've kind of neglected a bit. Again, we chat every day remotely, but I do want to get that in person going.
Now, okay, so I mean, I don't usually do this, but why is that? Like, what's the philosophy of kind of taking a little bit more of a closer contact feel? What's driving that scenario for you?
Yeah, I think well, first it'd be fun. I've worked with some of these people for years and never met them, right? Other than through a little whatever 10 by 10 inch by 10 inch screen or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So but I don't know, I mean, I think just for the business value of it, just to actually connect with people as humans, right? Like I can remember like my corporate job. Um I probably stayed longer than I did at that corporate job because I liked who I was working with. I had friends, right? There was real camaraderie. So I think that's just like something I want to instill more, just for the sake of like, feeling like the people you're working with are actually people and you actually like you like have that drive to support them more, right? So just to kind of foster the teamwork and the employee retention as well.
I love it. I love it. So look, I mean, I just recently made a change from one bank to another, and it's interesting. That's a big reason, right? Like they say, people don't leave the job because of the job; they leave the job because of the friendships and the non-leadership or the non-communication that they have, right? So it's so important that you, as the leader, as the figurehead, as the CEO, as the founder, to create those moments where there's continuity and coming together, right? So that's awesome. Last one is operational excellence. I know you shared a really insight about the technology. Is there anything else that you see forecasted for the next 6, 12, 18 months that you'll be kind of investigating more, or you're waiting for something to change in the technology to help you in revenue boost?
Yeah, so just again from like a tech and tools perspective, how to make the company more efficient.
Yep.
Yeah, there's nothing specific, but it's for me, it's just everything AI. Like AI is definitely where I've got the biggest gains from a technology perspective the last year or so. It's allowed me to unlock new skills that I've never had before because, if you want to learn something, you could just ask ChatGPT how to do that, right? Or now you can even upload screenshots of your screen and say, hey, what does this mean? Or how do I do this, right? So that's just been amazing. And there's no particular AI development I'm waiting for, but I'm just always paying attention and just seeing like what's changing, what's new, what new tools are coming out, and just spending a little bit of time here and there to always like test new things and just kind of see what else can give us an edge.
Awesome, awesome. Well, hey, AJ, it's been awesome having you on the podcast. We love having these small to medium-sized business owners. It's kind of the birthplace of what I thought Go for SEO would be. I've had so much fun interviewing two, three, 400 already CEOs and founders of companies because you guys all have, and I've owned my own business, but I also now have been a commercial banker for a while. So it's kind of, I play both areas of entrepreneur and entrepreneur, and
Mm.
such great stories. The way that you kind of said, the things that you think about now that you have a family has tweaked a little bit in your business and some of those time frames and how you kind of develop that. So I really enjoyed that. So tell everybody, if they're interested in working with Revenue Boost, what's the best way to get a hold of you on the biz dev side, or do you have a channel that you like to, guide people to?
Yeah, for sure. And thanks so much for having me, John, and all the great questions. I hope the conversation brought a lot of value to everyone. Best way to connect with me would be email, which is aj@revenueboost.net. And as far as social media, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube as well, which is just my name, AJ Casada.
Awesome, my friend. Well, hey, Growth Shield community, by the way, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. I should do it in the beginning, but I tend to do it at the end here. Pick up the 4A formula. All right. It's been really a really gangbuster. October 9th, we launched it. I've got over 10 reviews right now on Amazon. We are coming out with the audio version very soon on Audible. So super excited about that. Learning from guys like AJ. All right. In our bonus chapters, I talk about all the interviews. There's about 12 or 14 guests that I pluck out their knowledge scoops that they share with us on these podcasts. And that's in the bonus chapters in there. So we're coming out with new some stuff as well. So AJ, thank you so much. And visit revenueboost.net, right?
Yep, that's it.
All right, my friend. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks so much.